what do you need from your partner on an hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis? This is Reid Mahalka from readaboutsex.com.
Cathy from intimacydojo.com.
And Reid was teaching at the Sex 10X Deep Dive about how to talk about your needs and how each person in a relationship could write down what they'd like, what their needs are from their partner at different spacings, and then talk to each other about it. And like the partner could go, sure, that's no problem, never gonna happen, I can do this sometimes. Mm-hmm. And just rather than having expectations and resentments because, hey, you didn't do that thing, you actually talk about what it is that you both want, and then figure out what's a good match and what isn't, and what needs you can get met elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. So the Sex 10X Deep Dive is a sexuality weekend where we're doing. People get to watch. It's show and tell sex ed. You get to watch and get your questions answered while we do live demos, which is not something that a lot of people know where to find.
Yeah. It was really
show and tell sex ed. And, you know, when you're showing people and telling people and answering questions around sexuality, the umbrella or the basket that sexuality is in is really inside of relationships, even if it's a casual, anonymous hookup. But there's relationships where your ability to know what your needs and desires are and communicate them, like that's kind of the basket that holds all this stuff together. So even when we're talking about like, here's how to have better oral sex or use your hands to create pleasure, or these are better positions for certain kinds of sex, the communication piece and the self-awareness piece around needs is so important. And this is where, from a relationship perspective, your ability to figure out what your needs are, period, are really useful in relationships and being able to communicate them. So whether it's sex or just intimacy mm-hmm. or cohabitating together or child rearing.
Yeah, I need you to text me when you're going to be more than 10 minutes late for dinner.
Or picking Bobby up from soccer. These are the communication tools and the self-awareness tools and the exercises to figure out what you need that we do in the high performance relationship mastery weekend, because this is how you get your relationships to perform at a higher level. This is how you figure out what you need so you can ask for it.
Right.
So your partners can win with you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't just have to be sex. Like the deep dive, it was focusing on sex, but I snuck in a little of the needs and the communication part.
Well, I think there's so much shame often about needs, and then there's that expectation that if my partner really loved me, he or she would guess and know what this is. And just writing down genuinely what our needs are for different time periods, like I need a hug every day. I need you to tell me you love me when we go to bed, or whatever it is. If you write them down, at least our partner's aware. And they may be like, that just does not fit who I am. I am so sorry. I do love you, but I don't want to say that every day. And we've had people write in about stuff like that. Okay, well, maybe it's not their love language, and you can understand what their love language is and understand that they are loving you in other ways. Mm-hmm. Or you can okay, I'm going to call my best friend and say goodnight to them. Or how else can you get those needs met?
Yeah. When you really start geeking out on relationships and how so many of us inherited horrible relationship role modeling from our families, then if no one ever showed you how to do it differently and better, how are you supposed to wake up one morning and just know? If the analogy that I talk about is a lot of us were taught how to drive by getting in the car, putting the key in, checking the mirrors, putting our seatbelt on, and then pulling this lever by our side. And no one ever told us that was the parking brake, and that we, in relationships, were taught to pull the parking brake on. And then there's all this extra effort and trouble and friction and the smell of burning rubber, brake pads in our car, but we just thought that was normal. So when you can kind of recalibrate and point out the mistakes that we've inherited, take the parking brake off, your relationship leaps forward in this way with more ease, higher performance, better gas mileage, less smell of burning rubber.
Yeah.
And then that's what the whole high performance weekend's going to be about.
Yeah.
Is nerding out on these principles, having exercises where you get to write down, what your needs are, what is something you think you need every day.
Right. And it might be really useful to write down needs versus wants. Need is something like, if I don't get this, it's hurting me or damaging the relationship. A want is, if I got this, it would be great. But if I don't get it, I'll be okay.
Yeah. And you start really parsing those things out. And then if you really want to nerd out, you look at the other things that might be influencing it. Like, you're rocky and feeling insecure, so you need your partner to say that you love them.
Or work is going particularly badly right now, and so you need more emotional support right now.
Or your life works better when you have more than 6 hours of sleep every day.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, when you do that, because this is also a little bit of high performance stuff in your life, when you're better rested, you're less insecure in your love relationship. But you would never have thought to look in the sleep category as a means of improving your marriage.
Right.
And it's like, some of this stuff there's some basic things that are so interwoven that, and of course your mom and dad or the adults around you growing up would never have pointed that out, because we are still the beginnings of being the generation or generations
conscious relationships,
where conscious relationships and more choice and then self-help now exist in relationships. Mm-hmm. My mom and dad, at the age that they were at, they were really the first generation where it was starting to be okay to go see a relationship therapist.
Yeah.
To go to a marriage workshop. Now we're in it where
now it's okay, but I remember my parents went and it was very shame. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, but we still grew up in those family dynamics where that wasn't okay. So maybe our kids or our grandkids will really start to get the momentum of all of our hard work, because they grew up in the families where we're starting to role model it's okay to ask for your needs and your wants and your desires.
If they want to find out more about your 3-day weekend program, where would they go?
High Performance Relationship Mastery.com. Thanks, Cathy.
Yeah. Hope
Leave
to see you
comments.
there.
What do you think?